Amidst this pandemic novel corona, my dear students of M.A Semester II, since we have lost the lively sessions of classroom, today let us do some digital learning and estimate the novel Emma. I know you all are worried because after the reopening of the university and the college, you all will have to appear in your second internal examination. So we thought, let's do some discussion on this particular novel Emma, which is in your syllabus. Whenever we start talking about a novel or we start estimating a novel, there are few things which we need to keep in our mind. First, the full name of the novel. The full name of the novel is Emma. The genre is novel, and with that you should also remember that this Emma is comedy of manners. The author is Jane Austen. Language used in the novel is English. Date of first publication of this novel was 1816. The publisher was John Murray. Now, why did I discuss all this? We should try to remember these facts about a novel because for your quiz, because of your objective test. So these details need to be kept in the mind about any work of art and also about this particular novel, Emma. Now, after that, what should you focus upon? You should focus upon what kind of narration is there? Who is the narrator of the novel? Now, in this particular novel, Emma, the narrator is anonymous and narrates sometime after the events of the novel take place. The novel is narrated using free indirect discourse, which means that the narrator steps into and out of Emma's thoughts, sometimes using language we would imagine Emma to use without placing it in quotation marks, which means without the sign of direct speech, the narrator intrudes into the thought of Emma and talks on behalf of Emma. Now, what is the point of view of this novel? And what is the meaning of point of view? Well, point of view means the novel is narrated in third person by a narrator who tells us what individual characters think, what they think and what they feel, and who also provides insight and commentary. For the most part, the narrator relates events from Emma's perspective, but at times she enters into the thought of other character. For example, chapter 41 is narrated from Mr. Knightley's perspective. So Emma has entered into the thought of Mr. Knightley and she talks. Now, what is the tone of the novel? We also should know the tone. The tone of the novel Emma is, it is ironic, satirical, and sympathetic at times. Now, what is the tense used in the novel? We also have to know the tense used by Jane Austen. Jane Austen has used the tense immediate past. That is, she doesn't talk of very, very far off days or far off tense she has used. She has used immediate past. Then we should also focus on the setting. Setting means what is the time she is dealing with, Jane Austen is dealing with. It is early 19th century. Then the place. The setting of place is Highbury, England. And the protagonist, we all know, the protagonist is Emma Woodhouse. So this novel has a female protagonist. Now, how a novel is developed. When we say how it is developed, we try to say that the storyline moves, either it will have some major conflicts, and those major conflicts will lead to rising action, and those rising actions will lead to the climax, and then after the climax we see the falling action. Now in this particular novel, Emma, the major conflict is Emma struggles to shed her vanity and her fear of confronting her own feelings, both of which cause her to misunderstand those around her and to meddle harmfully in the lives of others. So, what we see, the major conflict is Emma is struggling. She's struggling to shed her vanity and her fear of confronting her own feelings, both of which cause her to misunderstand those around her and to meddle harmfully in the lives of others. It means that she misunderstands people. Now, this leads to some rising action. Emma realizes that she was horribly wrong to think she could make a match between Mr. Elton and Harriet, because not only are the two ill suited to one another, but Mr. Elton has had feelings for her all along, but she intentionally or unintentionally failed to acknowledge. She decides to be in love with Frank. Who? Who decides? Harriet decides. She decides to be in love with Frank and flirts aggressively with him, though she recognizes that her feelings are not in fact very strong. When she cruelly insults Miss Bate at the Box Hill party, Mr. Knightley reprimands her, and Emma feels extreme remorse about the cruelty of her actions. Now, all these actions and activities lead to the climax. The climax is Emma realizes that she is in love with Mr. Knightley after Harriet discloses the same to Emma. After this climax, the following actions take place. Emma and Mr. Knightley confess their feelings for one another. Knightley proposes to Emma. The happiness of Harriet, Frank and Jane, which Emma's intrusion has endangered, is secured as Harriet accepts Mr. Martin's proposal and Jane and Frank prepare to marry. Now, apart from these, we should also keep in mind what is the theme. The themes are also important of a novel. Now, the major themes of this particular novel, Emma, is marriage and social status, the confined nature of women's existence, the blinding power of imagination, the obstacles to open expression. So, marriage and social status seem to be leading theme of the novel Emma. Now we also should know the motifs. Well, what is a motif? A motif is any necessary element that has symbolic significance in a story. I repeat, a motif is any necessary element that has symbolic significance in a story. In this particular novel, Emma, the motifs are visits, parties, conversational subtexts. Also, we should focus upon the symbols. The symbols used in this novel are the riddle, the word game, tokens of affection. Lastly, I would like to draw your attention on the foreshadowing. You know, what is foreshadowing? Foreshadowing is to show or act as a sign of something that will happen in future. It is somewhat like foreseeing things. So let us focus upon the foreshadowing in the novel Emma. Almost every chapter includes foreshadowing. For example, in chapter 27, we are told that Emma felt as if the spring would not pass without bringing a crisis, an event, and crisis, an event, something to take place after her present composed and tranquil state. So foreshadowing also is a very important part of a novel. So some keywords you should keep in mind while studying a novel: narrator, point of view, tone, tense, setting of time, setting of place, who is the protagonist, what are the major conflicts, what are the rising actions, what is the climax, and then subsequently what is the falling action. What are the themes, or what is the theme, and the motifs, symbols, and lastly foreshadowing. These are few important elements which need to be focused upon before studying any novel. And for that matter, when you take up the novel Emma to read cover to cover, please keep these points in your mind and read the novel. In case you have any difficulty, you all have got my